Hey folks, Joe Steet from Dave and Adams Card World here. We sent basically an entire alpha set off for grading and it popped back. So doing a little video here to show off some of the more notable cards and some of the more notable grades in the set. So first here we have this Brain Geyser. It came back in 9.5, just half a point short of quads. It's also known as a basic. Pretty nice grade, pretty nice card. Here we have a Quad Plus Disintegrate with a 10 on edges. Also pretty nice here. Nice Quad 9.5 Earthquake. This next card is one that I was hoping for just a wee bit better on. It's a pirate ship. This is an incredibly hard card to get in a BGS 9 Plus because usually it has centering issues. This one actually spiked a 10 on centering, but only an 8 on surface. So it overall came out to a 8.5 with 9s on edges and corners. This is a pretty low population of 9.5, the Phantasmal Forces. A little hard to find this looking so good. Everybody's first favorite common mana dork, the Llanowar Elf. 9.5 basic plus with a 10 on centering, but only a 9 on the corners. So obviously I'm including power and duels even if they didn't have some insane grade to them, because this tropical island is only a 6.5. It's got kind of a lot of dents and dings to it, but you know, figured as long as we're sending stuff off, we might as well put it in a slab so it looks pretty. 9.5 clone. The Scrubland came back just an 8 with 3 8.5s and then a 7.5 on the surface. It's got a couple of looks like ink issues on the back. Scribe Sprite's a very popular fan favorite card with a nice little 9.5 set of grades there. This Sarah Angel we knew wasn't going to come back too high, but it looks pretty nice. Most of the wear's around the edges and the border. So once it's in the slab, it looks really, really good. This Sapphire was a bit of a heartbreak with a 7.5 surface and an 8 on corners. But overall, it looks very, very good for an 8. This Black Vice and this Demonic Tutor were expected to not score particularly highly. The reason why they were sent off is because they have these inking errors on the back. I'm not sure if the camera's picking these up particularly well. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of extra black ink on the back of these things. Oh, we also have a couple of other cards that we sent off that weren't from the alpha set. I'm going to flick through those real quick. 9.5 Workshop with a basic plus. 9.5 Quad Plus Chains of Mephistopheles. This one's actually pretty incredibly low population. I think this is the third highest set of subs in the world on this guy. Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, only 0.5 from a 9.5. It bumps on corners and edges, and suddenly you've got yourself a 9.5 Tabernacle here. This Unlimited Black Lotus has a 10 on surface, and then 9.5 edges and a 9 on corners, and then a 9 on centering, so also only 0.5 from a 9.5 gem mint. And then this nice little Sapphire with a 10 on centering and 9.5s on edges and surface with a 9 on corners. Pretty nice looking cards there, but also not alpha, so I'm going to gloss over them. We have this here Badlands, which actually came back in pretty good condition, barring that 6.5 on the surface. If you look really closely on the back, you can see like a ding. And so, you know, 7.5. It's in pretty good shape, barring that ding. Demonic Attorney with 3 9.5 subgrades and a 8.5 on the corners. So 0.5 from a 9.5. Alpha Chaos Orb, very, very popular card. 385 subs, nothing too crazy, not close to any sort of a bump, but pretty good looking thing. This Raging River, also 0.5 from a 9.5, and also a very popular card, basically for how confusing it is in terms of trying to follow the rules on it. 9.5 Lightning Bolt with only a 9 on the corners, which is a bit of a dagger because I got a bunch of people asking me for a quad or better Alpha Bolt. This 9.5 Royal Assassin, also pretty popular, fan favorite card. The 9 on the corners. Otherwise, everything else was a 9.5 on it. This Savannah was pretty close to a 9 overall. It's got 9.5 centering and edges with a 9 on the corners, but only an 8 on the surface. Also has a scratch on the back. That's why I only got the 8 on the surface. Swords to Plowshares, one of the best removal spells ever printed. So they only made them worse over time. Pretty good grades overall. 9.5 on edges, but only an 8.5 on the corners. This Heartbreak of a Shivan Dragon, 0.5 from a 9, with 8.5 centering and 8.5 on the corners. But 9 edges, 9.5 surface. This Wrath of God did not come back too strong. 9s and higher on the centerings, corners, and the edges, but the surface also has some issues. I believe it has a scratch or two on the back, a little squiggle from I'm not sure what. This Time Walk here came back with a 6 on the surface. It's got a scratch right about there. Otherwise, everything was 8.5 or higher. So, pretty good looking Time Walk, especially if you were to crack it out and play it in a sleeve. Bayou came back with 10 centering and some pretty good other scores with 9s on corners and 9.5 on surface, but the edges were a 7, so overall it's an 8. It's got a bit of a issue with the edge up there at the top. 8.5 Plateau with 3 8.5s and then a 10 on surface, so this one was free of printer dots, but not in the best shape relative to the other cards in the set, most of which came back 9s or higher. Soul Ring with 2 8.5s and 2 9.5s, so 0.5 from a bump on this thing as well. Pretty nice looking Soul Ring. This Mana Flare, quad 9.5, very collectible, very low population. This Mana Vault, these are starting to dry up on the internet, so this one's going to be a little bit more expensive than most previous ones have been. Just a basic plus on that guy. Another quad 9.5, this Mana Barbs here. Pretty good looking specimen there. We've got this Timberwolves, and if I remember, I can't remember whether it's this or the Thicket Basilisk, but one of those two is tied for the highest set of subs in the world. I don't think it's this one now that I've said it. Nice little 9.5 Timberwolves. Oh, this thing. All right, so we got this counterspell. It came back a 7.5 because it has a 6.5 on the centering. Corners were 8.5, edges and surface 9.95. So this is in what I would call mint condition, but very off center. So if you wanted to get one to play with, that'd be the way to go. Crusade. This is one that a friend of mine was looking for in a 9+ for his graded set. Couldn't quite deliver on it because it only got a 6.5 on the surface and an 8.5 on the corners. But the edges and the centering were pretty good on it. BGS 9 Tundra. That's pretty good looking. With a 9.5 on surface too, so pretty great dual land there. This is one of the big hits out of the set, the 9.5 Recall with 2 10 subgrades. Only got a 9 on the corners though. Already has a couple of people messaging me trying to acquire this thing, so I got to get them scans of this as soon as I possibly can. Vesuvian Doppelganger didn't come back too strong, 7.5 on the surface, so it's an 8.5 overall. But generally a pretty popular card with people who like art. Stone Rain is another card that was challenged to get in a 9+. It's an 8 on centering and an 8.5 corners, so it only came out an 8.5. A lot of centering issues on this card when you're getting them graded. This Taiga has 2 9.5s, a 9 and an 8.5, so it's a very strong 9. Very good looking Taiga if you're into. It's unfortunately not a blue duel, so people aren't after it quite as much. The Underground Sea has pretty much an 8.5 on every sub except for centering's a 9. It's a pretty good looking sea. If this is something that you were thinking of playing with, this is definitely about as good as you would ever expect to see. Here we have the Black Lotus. Did not come back especially strong. We didn't expect it to. It has a bunch of edge issues and some corners, which is why I got a 7. But if you're looking at it, it looks really nice. So if you're one of the people that keeps asking me about buying a graded Lotus to crack and play with, this is your winner here. That's what you're looking for. 8.5 on the Time Twister. It's pretty good. It's got a 7.5 on the surface though. Everything else is 9 or higher. It's pretty good. Then we got a couple of Moxen to go through. The Ruby came back a 9. The Emerald came back a 9. And the Pearl came back a 9. They're all pretty much nothing too unusual with any of the subgrades there. And then we have the winner chicken dinner of the set. It's the 9.5 Jet. This card is actually already sold. Sold in about 60 seconds of me listing it, with 9 other people trying to purchase it after I listed it. So yeah, this is a very sought after piece. Yeah, it's pretty good. If you're looking to purchase any of these cards, you can find them on our website, dacardworld.com. And if you're asking any questions about them, feel free to email me, joe@dacardworld.com. That's all for now, folks. Have a great day.